Hi, my name is Joel with Up North Aquatics. Thanks for stopping by. This is the first video on YouTube, and I am by no means a filmmaker, but let's have some fun anyway. What better way to start our first video on the channel than just with a fish room tour, everything I have. Maybe we'll talk about some plans for the future. I'm looking forward to having you all come with me on the journey, and again, thanks for being here, but let's get started. I guess to begin with, we'll go over what the fish room consists of. This is a crawl space style basement that I can't even stand up in, so I work on little stools and have all my tanks on lower stands. Some custom built, some bought. Everything's ran off one central air pump for filtration, except for in one of the larger tanks where I needed more mechanical filtration. And the whole room is heated on its own HVAC system. We got one pipe coming in there, one that comes in through the ceiling, and it's actually temperature controlled with my thermostat for my house. Certain tanks do get extra heat, and we'll talk about those as we get to them. So I guess we can start with the tank you see when you first walk in the room. It's a 125 gallon with very dirty glass that I'm noticing now. South American tank for some larger fish, and surprisingly a school of Buenos Aires tetras that get along just fine. Here we have our Oscar cichlids, a wild type, and an albino, along as a blood parrot, convict cichlid, crocodile eating a boat, and somewhere in there, usually under the log, would be my firemouth cichlid. This is a surprisingly peaceful tank for what's in it. I found that a lot of these South Americans, oh, there's a firemouth. Sorry to get sidetracked there. Color's amazing on these guys. I have found to be that it kind of as adult size, a lot of these South Americans do kind of chill out a little bit. And when it comes to the tetras, once they realize they can't catch them, they kind of leave them alone. I read about that in a forum. I was always scared to try it. Got those guys on a good deal, quarantined them, fattened them up a bit, put them in here, and just adds a little more action to a tank full of fish that can kind of be big and lazy. So that's always a fun one. And the first one you see that is real Mopani driftwood, just to get some tannins in the water. Floating plants are the only real ones, just to help a little bit with filtration. And this is the tank I was talking about that does have the extra mechanical filtration with the hang-on back. Other than that, everything else is ran on sponges, just because it's cheap and easy, to be honest. But yeah, there's tank number one. The next couple tanks here, I might as well group them together. It's a 55 gallon, right now just female beta sorority. Again, with some live floating plants, and actually a few of the floating plants wrapped around a piece of driftwood, just to give them the appearance of being something that they're not, because plants are hard to come by around here. I'm in a pretty remote location in the upper Michigan, over 2 hours to the nearest box store type of deal, and my closest local fish store is probably across state lines in Wisconsin, so make do with what you have, right? Took some floating plants, wrapped them around driftwood for the centerpiece. Everything else is just fake plants to give the females line of sight breaks, because they can be really nippy and really territorial. But so far so good. I found the more I have, the less issues I have, but I have not had any issues with these gals at all. Pretty soon they will be getting some roommates. That'll be in a future video. Hopefully all goes well. I think it will, but it'll be fun. A fun mix of color and activity and a little bit of attitude or aggression or whatever you'd say. So just ran on a sponge filter. This one's not heated. It's heated with the room. It stays in the mid 70s, high 70s in the winter time when the furnace is running a lot, but everybody's happy and healthy. Tank next to it is the tank that the girls came out of. It's the exact same aquascape. This one has a heater in it that's turned off right now. It's cycled, but I'm just using snails basically to keep it cycled, because we do have a shipment of fish coming in hopefully next week. That'll be a future unboxing video that are going to go in here at least for quarantine. They're going to come in pretty small. That's when I'll use the heater. That's when I'll use the meds to get them through quarantine until we figure out what to do with them. And yeah, so that's those two. We'll move on to the Cinderblock rack next. A lot to talk about there. So this is what the fish room started as. Just a Cinderblock rack, nice and cheap. 4 cinder blocks high, as well as the 12-foot 2x4s. A lot of people, including myself, would recommend going 4 high between layers here, just because it can make it tough to work. I'll show you here inside the tanks. Once you get that lid up, you can't really like stand up a net in here or anything. It's pretty cramped, you know, about as tall as my hand is wide. The only reason I didn't do that and only went with 3, which is manageable but kind of a pain, is because again, it is a crawl space. I wouldn't have had room for that shelf for the air pump. I wouldn't have had room to reach into the 55s on top, so make do with what you have. And that's just what worked out. So we'll go through the tanks here kind of one at a time. There's some fun stuff here. This tank here is heated. I keep it, sorry about the glare, I'm gonna ruin this video. I'll be in the background of all of it. I keep this one around 82, and that's because the 2 residents in here are quarantining a baby juvenile electric blue Acara and a very juvenile Jack Dempsey. Again, I had to drive to Wisconsin probably about 5 hours to get these guys, and this is all they had, so that's what I got. I've had them for a week in here quarantining, and as you can tell, they're already very personable. They want to be the stars of the show, and mostly because they've already figured out that I'm the one that gives them food. But so they'll move on to a 125 that we'll see later in the video, and I do have plans for this, but it's going to be a few month project to get everybody, 1, make sure they're healthy and that they don't need meds, 2, make sure I can get them to adult size, 3, see kind of the aggression, is there going to be any nipping or any issues in the other tank, and then finally we can move on to the next phase of this tank. That'll be in a future video, but it's going to be quite a ways out. Next tank down here, 20-gallon high, kind of a fun community style tank with just a school of black neons, a school of the harlequin rasboras, or the pork chop rasboras, as well as a rainbow shark, who I understand will get too big for this tank and have to move on, but there'll always be room for him somewhere in the fish room. Right now he's just growing out in here. He's a little territorial, but nothing the tetras can't handle. They're nice and quick, and he doesn't really pick on them a whole lot, but as I say that, he's probably going to go after one now. Fun little tank. One of the ones I had my kids help decorate just so I can keep them interested and get them down here. But yeah, about all. So the next tank is just a 10-gallon longways with 4 African clawed frogs. These guys are just a fun project. I raised them from eggs. I got 6 survived to an adult. I had to rehome 2. I'm probably gonna have to rehome 2 more. Probably only have room for 2 of these guys long term in the fish room, but it's always nice to have something a little different, other than just your typical fish, shrimp, snails. So yeah, we'll move on to the next one. This is just a 10-gallon green water tank with a breeding colony of guppies, ram's horn snails, and ghost shrimp that also breed for me in here. This is probably the most productive tank in the fish room. It's also where I grow a lot of my hornwort that I propagate into pretty much every other tank we're going to see down here. So yeah, super productive to have or super helpful to have a tank like this that you can produce anything you need to feed or anything you need to grow. It comes in handy a lot, and it's just a relatively cheap little setup that almost anybody can do. Next tank over, we do have the snail breeding tank. Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler for what's to come. This is just a group of ram's horn snails, and again, more floating plants, just the hornwort. Yeah, so like I said, growing them for feeders. We will discuss that in a future video when we unbox the fish we have coming in for them. Up here, these 2.5 gallons are where I grow all my pothos for the fish room that I propagate off, as well as just more snail breeding. This one turned green for some reason, not 100% sure why. That one did and that one didn't. Somebody else could probably explain it a lot better. I don't know a whole lot about plants and stuff. I've always focused on the animals, but I will be doing a build soon where we're going to do a rack of 10-gallon tanks that are all going to be dirted substrate, and planted, so that I can learn more from you guys, and maybe you guys learn something from me, but we'll have a lot of fun with that. But for right now, don't really understand it. All I know is it is perfectly healthy for the fish to have them in green water. Snails are obviously breeding in there. There is a male beta that's doing just fine, as well as lots of plants growing, more hornwort, and this pothos just sent down some aquatic roots into it. So yeah, that's that for those. And then next here this is a tank I set up just for fun, because I like to look at it. Big school of tiger barbs, and another 55 gallon here. Big school of tiger barbs, always active, really fun to feed. We'll get pretty big, so we might have to move them along eventually. Pretty much all fang plants except for the floating one. But yeah, just a lot of action and really fun. And then back here, it's turning out to be camera shy, is a kissing gourami that's growing out, as well as a spotted pictus cat that is tucked like right behind him. I do understand that the spotted pictus do like to be in a shoal, but again, another one of those situations where spend a whole day driving to get to a fish store, and if all they have is one, you just kind of gotta get it in, get it quarantined, get it fed up, and get it in a tank, and then as you find them, just kind of add to the shoal is my game plan there. So more will be coming. They're also really hard to find online right now for some reason, but I'm working on it. Up in here are my last two swordtails left. I used to raise swordtails for live feeders, kind of breed your own feeders. You don't have to worry about diseases or anything like that. But I don't really do that anymore. And these are the only two I have left. They're in there because I had to catch them out of the tank they were in, because they're going to a friend of mine who has an aquatic lizard. So that'll be the last of the live feeders down here when it comes to fish anyway. Moving on, this is kind of a 125 gallon South American grow out, I guess you'd call it. These fish that are in here will be in here for life, more than likely, but they are small right now and still kind of sort of in quarantine, even though they all seem fine. I've had them for a few weeks now, and they're all eating and everything. So do have a spotted silver dollar, another situation where you can only find one. So I'll work on building that school up, because I do really like them, and I know he'd be a lot happier in a school. One green terror cichlid who is extremely personable, fun to feed, fun to kind of play with. He'll play with you on the glass. I'm not sure he likes the camera too much, but he was a neat addition. And then one somewhere under this log, matter of fact, you can just see his tail. It's an albino Bashir. He'll come out primarily only when I feed, unfortunately, but he's a neat fish. So we'll do a feeding down here where everybody will get a chance to see him sometime in the future. Up next, I guess I'll show off the ponds I have. This is the last of the fish room tour here. These are just storage containers from Walmart. Another make do with what you have situation. And they each have a small colony of 24 karat gold white clouds that are very, very small. I just split up the ones I had into the two totes just to keep both of them cycled until I could find some just the regular coloration white clouds, or maybe some long fins. But yeah, the plan with these guys is just kind of get them through the quarantine they're in right now, get them fattened up into breeding size, and put some spawning mops in and see what happens. Maybe we'll play with them outside a little bit this summer, but we'll see. That's definitely in the plans for the future, is summer tubbing, getting them outside, and some other containers I have. But my focus, I think, for the first year, just to see if I can make it work, is going to be guppies. But long term, I would like to breed these ones as well. And then last pond here is the biggest one I have. It's a 125 gallon. It's actually a stock tank for farm animals, feeding them, giving them water. Works really well. And this is a little controversial with what I keep, but it's working for now, and things will be changing soon. Started out for my fancy tail goldfish. I moved them into a glass tank. I got a school of Shabunkin single-tail goldfish to raise up in here. And then ended up rescuing these two monsters from somebody that had them in a 40-gallon tank. The yellow one's actually a butterfly koi who was sold as like a fancy goldfish, somebody who didn't really know better. and that other one is a Sarasa Comet. Person ended up in a situation where they got way too big, needed them gone, wanted to do what was best for the fish. I could take them, but it was fall, it was starting to get cold, so I couldn't really get them into an adequate sized pond outdoors, and I just kind of had to have them in here for the winter. But everybody gets along really well, and there's really no issues other than they eat plants like crazy. So I have to grow plants in a makeshift breeder box with holes in it, duct taped to the side of the pond. And even then it's a challenge because the koi always bumps into them and keeps turning the leaves away from the light source, so that they keep having to turn and turn and turn, and I don't think they're really growing all that fast. But it is what it is with these guys. And I needed the glass tank for the fancies to start another quarantine tank basically, so they ended up in here too. And yeah, it just works. Works for now, but it is temporary, and we'll figure something out for all these guys. So that's it. That's it for my fish room tour. I do have one other display tank in my office, which I am waiting for some new fish to come in before I show it off. I think it'll be more fun that way. So yeah, that's all I have for right now. But we do have a lot of projects, a lot of new species to try. We'll do some fun unboxings, maybe some fish store tours when I'm out of town if I find something cool. I just appreciate you guys for stopping by. Please like and subscribe if this is something that you enjoy or that you kind of want to come along with. Yeah, again, thanks for being here, and we'll see you soon.